W. Bernard Lester was born in Havana, Florida on January 9, 1939, to Duncan and Edith Lester. Bernie grew up on what was known as a shadeback farm, which grew the tobacco plants that provided the outer wrappers of cigars. At the age of 8, he worked as a lugger, carrying the tobacco leaves from the field to the wagon. He attended Havana High School. While there, he was a member of the Future Farmers of America, the Parliamentary Procedures and Public Speaking Team, captain of the baseball team, senior class president, an Eagle Scout, and the recipient of the Distinguished Service Award from the American Legion. Even though his father sold their farm and they moved into town during his high school years, Bernie continued to raise chickens and sold the eggs as an FFA project. He also had a paper route, mowed yards, and worked at a service station. He kept 4 different boxes for the funds he earned from each job. That was the start of a multitasking talent that would serve him well in the years to come. After graduating high school, he joined the Army Reserve Program, serving 6 months of active duty at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, before going to the University of Florida for the spring semester. He majored in ag economics and poultry sciences, and while there, was president of the Ag Council, Florida Blue Key, and his fraternity. He paid his way through college by working at the university and as a produce buyer for Havana Canning Company. During this time, he met Elaine Purnell, who was a secretary at the Ag Extension Service, and they married in 1961. The same year, he also received his B.S. in agriculture from the University of Florida. The following year, he received his master's in ag economics. Bernie and Elaine then moved to Texas, where he received his Ph.D. in ag economics from Texas A&M University in 1965. A year later, their son Mark was born. In 1966, they were back in Florida as Bernie accepted a position as a research economist with the Florida Department of Citrus. In January 1969, Bernie was named Economic Research Director for the Florida Department of Citrus, where he was responsible for administering and conducting all economic research activities for Florida's citrus products. He became Deputy Executive Director in 1976 under Ed Taylor. In 1979, Bernie was named Executive Director of the Department of Citrus. An excellent judge of character, Bernie put together a team of people that helped him guide the industry through some extremely difficult times, including devastating freezes, canker, import tariffs, and juice adulteration issues.
Oh, Bernie is masterful. He's at his best in a crisis, I'm absolutely convinced. Day in, day out stuff, he seems like a normal guy. But in a crisis, that's when his true abilities and colors show, because he stays cool and calm under pressure, and he thinks clearly in all of these different circumstances and always gives good advice and guidance.
When the BRICS issue came up and there was a move in the industry to lower the BRICS level in FCOJ, Bernie took the position, retrospectively correctly, I believe, that we should encourage that, and he was not afraid to stand up and speak to that. There were a group of us, and myself included, who thought that was not the correct move at the time, and we fought that move vigorously. But to his credit, he stood up for what he believed, and retrospectively, I think he was absolutely correct.
One of the most heated issues was whether Florida juice processors should rely on Brazilian imports or wait out a supply shortage that could take years, thus risking the loss of shelf space and sales for the domestic market. After careful consideration and against major opposition, Bernie maintained the stance that the industry needed imports in order to hold shelf space and keep Florida citrus products in front of the American consumer. Yet another big issue was the adulteration of orange juice.
One of the issues that Bernie is known for is the economic adulteration issue. Bernie was facing a situation where companies outside the state of Florida were adding sugar to orange juice and not declaring it on the label. That's illegal. Bernie went to FDA to try to get them to enforce the law. They refused. He brought pressure to bear in Washington, which resulted in a few people going to jail. It saved the industry millions of dollars.
And then there was canker, a scare that our industry understood, but the public had to rely on the media to understand, and what a challenge that turned out to be. Bernie immediately recognized the potential disaster that could unfold and took bold steps to inform the public correctly.
It wasn't that long ago that consumers in the citrus industry heard for the first time about a dreaded disease, canker. And unfortunately, the media and the airways went crazy with misinformation. In fact, some even thought of canker and cancer along the same line. And knowing that there was canker in citrus groves, there was always that concern, would consumers stop drinking orange juice? Bernie immediately pulled together the who's who, went to the media capital of the world, New York City, addressed it head on. And I think he stopped what could have been very well a huge crisis for the citrus industry and addressed the problem, got consumers thinking orange juice, high quality, and though this was a serious problem for citrus growers, not a problem for our consumers.
With all of the diversity and challenges he faced during his time at the Florida Department of Citrus, Bernie became an unlikely public relations persona. His calm, soft-spoken demeanor, scientific background, and ability to discuss situations so the general public could understand them were attributes that were much needed at the time. He would be called upon constantly for those qualities throughout his career. In 1986, he left the Department of Citrus to join Alico Incorporated, one of the state's largest growers. He moved his family to LaBelle and immediately became part of the community, joining the newly formed Gulf Citrus Growers Association.
One of the strengths that Bernie really brought to our industry in Southwest Florida is the fact that he had a strong interface with the urban parts of Southwest Florida. We were heavily involved in community outreach. Alico as a company and Gulf Citrus we kind of piggybacked on a lot of this leadership through the advent of Florida Gulf Coast University and the Alico chairs in our region, involvement with the chambers of commerce. He brought a very broad-based perspective on community outreach and community relations and helping us communicate these kinds of the issues, the ag issues, with the urban public and the urban leadership.
He served on the Alico Board of Directors until February 2005. He also served on the Board of Directors for Orange Co. Incorporated, Agra Insurance Company, International Fruit Incorporated, Florida Fresh Pack, Saddlebag Lake Resorts, the Sugarland Harvesting Company, and the Florida Land Council. Bernie also served on the Board of Trustees for Florida Gulf Coast University, where he helped the staff formulate educational programs that could be used in the industry. His numerous awards and board appointments spoke as a testament to his leadership style.
He worked well with the staff. He was terrific with the Florida Citrus Commission. Not easy to manage and develop a relationship with some pretty strong leadership there. And then lastly, of course, and most important, what a great rapport he had with the Florida citrus growers, not only at Mutual, statewide.
In 2007, Bernie and Elaine established a student development endowment at the University of Florida. Throughout his life, he always found time to be an active participant in his church, serving in leadership roles wherever they lived at the time.
Bernie has always been extremely generous with his praise for the people he works with. And I think that's why everybody loves Bernie who works for Bernie, and he's been generous with his board of directors. And it may be because Bernie was raised on a farm. He did not have a fancy background, and I think that common man theme rings true in Bernie, and he's very humble but magnificent at the same time.
He's the most honest, hardworking individual I've ever worked for, without a doubt. He would never ask his staff to do anything that Bernie would not do himself. And He was quick to share the credit, and he was quick to walk away from any credit, but he deserves a lot of credit for a lot of people's success, mine in particular.
Intelligent, articulate, and actively involved in making decisions that have benefited the entire Florida citrus industry, Dr. Bernie Lester truly deserves to be the final member of our 50th anniversary Hall of Fame inductees.